This is the Chris Cross Show, and the NBA playoffs are kicking off tomorrow at 12 p.m. So with that, this show is going to be dedicated to me listing the top 16, actually 17 teams currently in the playoffs, because right now the Grizzlies and the Warriors, as I'm filming this, are playing right now, and the Grizzlies are up 62-49 against the Golden State Warriors. So I'm going to list you the top 17 teams currently in the playoff format. I'm also going to give you my first round predictions, as well as the top 5 players that need to prove something this playoffs, and as well as a little bit of slander that I've been hearing on LeBron's shot on Wednesday night against Golden State. So anyways, enjoy. All right, so the top 17 teams actually that are currently in the playoffs contention right now, I'm going to list you the top 17 teams. So anyways, let's get it started with number 17, the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks finished 5th in their conference. They had a pretty good season, but I need to see more from the Atlanta Hawks. I'm not currently sold on them. I think they're a good team. They're a good story this year. I just think that this year, they're just new to the playoffs. They're going to be in the playoffs. They're just happy to be there. They're going to compete against the Knicks, but I think ultimately they are the worst team in the playoffs right now. Number 16, as it stands right now, the Memphis Grizzlies will be advancing to the playoffs if they can hold off the Warriors. So I give them number 16 because Ja Morant is pretty good. Dillon Brooks is pretty good. They have a pretty good, tough team. I think the Memphis Grizzlies are a really good team. They're a really young team that's surprising. Again, you'd think that Zion and the Pelicans and how talented they are should be in the playoffs. But again, it's Ja Morant and his team. It just really speaks to Ja Morant. I wasn't sold on Zion because I think he has an injury history. I think he needs to lose a little bit more weight and gain more muscle to really compete against Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies. So I give the Memphis Grizzlies number 16. Number 15, the Boston Celtics. I mean, they're just a disappointment this year. They really couldn't capitalize off a strong finish last year. Jaylen Brown got hurt. I understand that. Kemba Walker's been iffy this entire year, as well as Jason Tatum. He was out with COVID and all those other things. So they've had a lot of things that kind of derail them, but they're a good enough team to really compete. I mean, the pieces around them, I just think they're a little bit of a disappointment this year. So I give the Boston Celtics the 15th best team in the playoffs right now. Number 14, the Washington Wizards. As of late, Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal have figured it out, and they've been playing pretty good. I think they're going to get blown out by Philadelphia, but they're a good story, and I wouldn't be surprised if they can pull a game or two away from Philadelphia. So the Wizards will be number 14. Number 13, the Golden State Warriors. I don't know if the Warriors are going to make it. I'm filming this as the game's going on right now. Again, last time I checked, 62-49. The Golden State Warriors are down at halftime. So as of right now, I do consider the Warriors the 13th best team if they were to make the playoffs, because they've been playing pretty good. Steph Curry's been amazing. Again, they're ranked really low in the playoff standings because, again, they only have Steph Curry. Everyone else is just kind of hit or miss at this point with them. So the Warriors will be number 13. Number 12, the New York Knicks. I think they're a good regular season team. They were a good story. They capitalized off a longer offseason than a lot of other teams. And I just think right now they're another good player away from actually competing against anyone in the Eastern Conference, at least in the second round. I do believe they will go to the second round, but I don't think they'll compete with Milwaukee, Brooklyn, Philadelphia, and I don't know if I mentioned Milwaukee, but Miami as well. So the New York Knicks to me will be number 12. Number 11, the Miami Heat. Again, the Miami Heat, they've been very inconsistent this year. It's kind of hard to really tell with them because they've just been highly inconsistent this year. After a huge playoff run last year, I give them number 11 because, again, inconsistency. When Jimmy Butler plays, they're a really good team. When he doesn't, they're kind of all right. So Miami will be number 11. Number 10, the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks, to me, in my opinion, were a little bit of a disappointment. I pictured them a little bit higher in the standings. I thought they were going to finish first or third in the playoff in the conference standings. And I thought they were going to be really a lot better than what I imagined them. Obviously, they kind of disappointed me. They're the 5th seed, again, due to the Lakers being injured. So the Dallas Mavericks will be the 10th best team to me in the playoffs. Number 9, the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, I give the Portland Trail Blazers a nod because they're healthy, and Damian Lillard in the playoffs is pretty good. Last year, kind of disappointed a little bit because he got hurt and whatnot. But again, even when he was on the court, the Lakers were just the obvious better team. Again, he ran into the Lakers. I believe that if he faced anybody else, other than them and the Clippers, other than the Lakers and the Clippers, he would have been in the second round. So the Portland Trail Blazers are number 9, mostly because of Damian Lillard. Number 8, the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz have the best record in the league, but I don't know. I can't be sold on them because they've been the only healthy team. Now every other team is healthy heading into the playoffs. I want to see a little bit more from them. They beat up on a lot of injured teams this year, mostly because they've been healthy for at least 80 to 90% of the year compared to other teams. Have the best record in the league, so I got to give them a nod in the top 10. I just got to see their first round matchup, and I know their first round matchup is going to be either against the Warriors or the Grizzlies, and those matchups aren't going to be easy for them anyways. So it'd be interesting to see Utah heading in here, but they will take number 8. Number 7, the Denver Nuggets. I believe they will get into I believe they will go to the second round. They will beat the Blazers, but I think it's going to be a huge competitive series with the Blazers. But I do give the Denver Nuggets the edge because they got bigger, better players like Michael Porter Jr., who's like 6'9", 6'10", Nikola Jokic, who's their center, Aaron Gordon, who they acquired over the trade deadline. I just think they've got more firepower that can compete and can basically score in the paint more than the Blazers. So the Denver Nuggets will be number 7. Number 6, the Milwaukee Bucks. I think they are better than last year. And the teams ahead of them are great teams, so it's no knock against them. I just think I need to see a little bit more from the Milwaukee Bucks last year in the second round. And I understand it was the bubble. Teams weren't really feeling it. But I think that Giannis needs to show me a little bit more, especially in the first round against Miami. He needs to show me more to convince me that they should be higher than 6. So Milwaukee will take number 6. Number 5, the LA Clippers. The Clippers, to me, the past couple years, especially with Paul George in the playoffs, the past couple years with OKC and with the Clippers last year, he's been pandemic P. He's been pretty awful in series where it's really, really important. And again, Paul George, good in March and April, isn't going to do anything for me when he's good, when he's supposed to be good in May and June. So as of right now, I give the Clippers number 5, mostly because of Paul George. I need to see a little bit more from Paul George. Number 4, the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets, I think I read a funny stat where Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie have played 8% of the possible games with each other. So again, they're going to be learning chemistry. They're going to be working on chemistry in the playoffs, especially in the first round. And they got a pretty good first round matchup against the Boston Celtics where they can really work on things, because I don't think the Boston Celtics are going to compete much unless Jason Tatum goes for 50 like he did against the Wizards. So I need to see more from the Brooklyn Nets before I can rank them higher. So the Brooklyn Nets will be number 4. Number 3, the Phoenix Suns. Now this is ironic because they face the best team, in my opinion, in the playoffs in the first round. I do believe Phoenix, if they played anybody else, would beat them, but they're playing the Lakers in the first round, so I can't really give them the nod. But I do believe that the Phoenix Suns are a good story this year. They have been playing pretty good. Their team is well equipped. They've got shooters, they've got rim protectors, and they got Chris Paul, who's a pretty good point guard, especially in the playoffs. Again, he gets criticized for his playoff injuries and playoff shortcomings, but a lot of those ended with injuries. So again, it's going to be interesting to see with Chris Paul with actually a loaded team and Devin Booker, DeAndre, and Jay Crowder, and all those other guys. So the Phoenix Suns will be my 3rd best team in the playoffs right now. Number 2 is going to go to the Philadelphia 76ers. Joel Embiid's been healthy for the majority of the year. Other than that, I think hyperextension or contusion he got on his knee. I think it was in March or something like that. Minor setback, but he's been healthy for the majority of the season. He is in the MVP conversation, the finalists actually. And they've been playing pretty good basketball. Doc Rivers was a great addition, a good voice in the locker room for them. They have the best record in the Eastern Conference. I do believe they will be in the Eastern Conference Finals, and then they're going to get there easily with their first 2-round matchups that I see right now that they're supposed to face. So the Philadelphia 76ers are number 2. Number 1, the Lakers. Now they're the defending champions, and their game against the Warriors just showed that they felt the Warriors out in the first half, and in the second half, they kind of saw what they were playing and then kind of did their game plan in the second half and just beat them. And it was a pretty good matchup. It was a pretty good feel-out game for the Lakers. And I think that the Lakers are the best team. They are the defending champions. They're all healthy now, so there's no excuses. So the LA Lakers are the best team in the playoffs right now. So there you go. I'm going to show my list right here. My top 17. I'm ranking at top 17. Ranking the best teams in the playoffs right now in order. So there you have it. The top 17 teams in the playoffs right now. Again, considering the fact that the Memphis Grizzlies and the Golden State Warriors are playing right now. So there you have it. Top 17 teams in the playoffs currently. All right, up next, I just listed the top 17 teams in the playoffs right now. So let me give you my predictions for the first round matchups. So let's start off in the Eastern Conference with Philadelphia and Washington. Now, I'm going to go with Philadelphia sweeping the Wizards just because Bradley Beal is playing hurt with a hurt hamstring right now. And Russell Westbrook, again, had his way with the Indiana Pacers because the Indiana Pacers do not have a perfect rim protector and they've got some problems going on with their coach. So they got past Indiana because of all those situations. Now, the Philadelphia 76ers are a little bit different. Joel Embiid's their main rim protector. Ben Simmons is a pretty big guard. We saw when you put a big body on Russell Westbrook, like Jason Tatum in that first play-in game that the Wizards played, we saw that when Jason Tatum was guarding Russell Westbrook, he was almost non-existent because he couldn't get to the rim because he had a guy who was way taller than him and way lengthier than him guard him and prevent him from getting his paint points. So again, Ben Simmons, if he guards Russell Westbrook, you're going to watch and see that Ben Simmons is going to play Russell Westbrook really, really tight, especially in the paint. So I give the Philadelphia 76ers a 4-0 sweep. The Brooklyn Nets and the Boston Celtics, the 2 versus the 7th. I'm going to go Brooklyn winning in 5 just because I think Boston will steal a game in Brooklyn, mainly because Brooklyn is trying to figure themselves out. Brooklyn, James Harden, Kyrie, and KD, this is going to be the first, and sorry for that. Brooklyn is going to be figuring it out, so I do think the Celtics will steal a close game early on in the series, and I think Brooklyn's just going to figure it out. They're going to have too much firepower for Boston to last. So I'm going to give Brooklyn winning in 5. All right, the 3rd and the 6th seed, so the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat. I'm going to go with Milwaukee winning in 6 just because I think that Milwaukee wants revenge, and they are better than they were last year, adding P.J. Tucker and Drew Holiday to Chris Middleton and Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think that's a good combination to add. Pretty good players. Again, P.J. Tucker is a proven 3-point shooter, and Drew Holiday is a good defender. I just think that Milwaukee at this point has more firepower than the Miami Heat, and I think Miami Heat has been kind of inconsistent this year, and it's going to show in the playoffs. So I give the Milwaukee Bucks winning in 6 against the Miami Heat. All right, the 4 and the 5 seed. Now these seeds, this first round matchup is always the most competitive because they're the 2 teams that are closely in skill level. The New York Knicks, I'm going to go with winning in 6 games against the Atlanta Hawks just because I think the Knicks are a better defensive team, and I think they're going to stop Trae Young early in the series, which is going to show early on in the series, especially in New York. Atmosphere in Madison Square Garden is going to be too much for the Atlanta Hawks, in my opinion. So I give the New York Knicks winning in 6 against the Atlanta Hawks. Obviously, when the second round comes, I'm going to give you my second round predictions. But as of right now, giving you my first round predictions. All right, up next is the Western Conference predictions. All right, currently the Golden State Warriors and the Memphis Grizzlies are playing against each other in the play-in game. So my predictions for the Western Conference, at least for the first round, for Utah versus Golden State or Memphis, I'm going to give you both of my predictions for that, if it happens either or. So let's go with Golden State versus Utah. I'm going to go with Utah winning in 6, just because I believe that Steph Curry has enough firepower to give the Golden State Warriors 2 wins. Ultimately, I think that Utah is just going to throw different bodies at Steph all series long. And again, in the playoffs, teams expose your flaws and teams use your flaws against you all series long. And I think the flaw is who's Golden State's guaranteed second scorer other than Steph Curry. So I think that Utah is going to expose that later on in the series, and it's going to be too much for Golden State to handle. So I think the Utah Jazz will win in 6 games against the Warriors. Now, if they face the Grizzlies, I do believe they will win in 5, because I think that Memphis is currently right now too young and doesn't have enough firepower to compete with Utah. With that being said, Utah will win in 5 over the Grizzlies if it is Utah and the Grizzlies. All right, the Lakers and the Suns. Now, the sports bets had the Lakers opening up as favorites against the Suns. I'm going to say this. I think the Lakers are favorites, but I think it's going to be a brutal matchup for the Lakers, just because I think that Phoenix has been healthy for the majority of the year. They've been playing pretty good ball. It's going to take the Lakers a little bit in the series to figure them out. I think the series is going to be tied 2-2, and everyone's going to be nervous. And then just LeBron and Anthony Davis are going to take over the rest of the series and win in 6. So I give the Lakers winning in 6 against the Phoenix Suns, because I think the first 2 games are going to be really, really challenging and tough, especially being on the road and trying to figure each other out. So I think the Lakers will eventually figure it out, but I think it's going to take them 6 games. And I think Game 6 is going to be close, and I just think the Lakers are just going to scratch by. All right, Denver versus the Blazers. I'm going to go with Denver in 7. Now, I go Denver in 7 because a couple years ago, the Denver Nuggets and the Portland Trail Blazers played in the second round, and I think it took them 7, and the Blazers ultimately ended up winning in 7. So I'm going to go with the Denver Nuggets in 7, just because I think they have more firepower to compete against the Portland Trail Blazers, and I just think ultimately throughout the series, Dame's going to be doing too much. He's going to eventually get tired. He's going to run out by Game 7. I think Michael Porter Jr. is going to really show off his skills in this series. I think this is a series for him, because what other forward can guard him in the Blazers team? I think Norman Powell's a pretty good player, but I think ultimately Michael Porter Jr.'s offense is better than his defense. So ultimately, I think Michael Porter Jr. is going to be the key for Denver winning this in 7. Clippers and Mavs. I'm going to go with the Clippers in 7, just because I think that the Mavericks, if Kristaps Porzingis stays healthy, they will go 7. If he doesn't, I do believe it'll be over in 5 or 6 for the Mavericks. But if Kristaps Porzingis stays healthy, if everyone stays healthy, it's a 7-game series in the Clippers' favor, just because the Clippers have too much firepower. They have too many proven players. And again, you can throw Kawhi, you can throw Paul George at Luka all game long. And ultimately, it's going to exhaust Luka. Luka's going to get his numbers, but he's going to be exhausted towards the end of the game. And you're not going to be able to close out against the Clippers. So I think the Clippers in 7, because I think early on it's going to be a 2-2 series. And just very similar to the Lakers and the Suns, the Clippers are eventually going to figure the Mavericks out. So I think the Clippers in 7 in the first round. All right, so anyways, those are my predictions for the Western and the Eastern Conference. Up next is my top 5 players that have to prove something in the playoffs. But first, enjoy this advertisement I have for you. You know what Mr. Rodriguez loves to do when he's grading papers? Loves to enjoy it while eating a bag of Ruffles. Ruffles chips is the greatest chips in the world because they have a variety of flavors, like original, cheddar, flamin' hot barbecue, sour cream and onion, and my favorite, lime and jalapeno. Not only do Ruffles have ridges, but they also have a pretty cheap cost to them. Ruffles are so great that even star basketball players like NBA champion Anthony Davis eat them. Isn't that right, Anthony? Now, enough about me. Why don't you go out and you buy these chips and just see how amazing they truly are? All right, hopefully you enjoyed the advertisement that I provided for you. Anyways, moving on to the top 5 players that have something to prove in the playoffs this year. So we're going to go from number 5 to number 1. Number 1 obviously being the player that has to prove the most. All right, so number 5, Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell's been in the playoffs every single year since he's been drafted. I think right now it's winning time. You have the best record in the league. It's time to prove that you're here and that you're here now. Again, I understand that you have Kawhi Leonard, you have LeBron James, you have Chris Paul in the same conference. So you have all these other players that are in the same conference as you, but you had the best record in the regular season. It's time for you to prove something. Last year, you shocked the world by scoring 40, 50 points in the first round against Denver. Now it's time to really prove it in wins. Win a playoff series. Get to the Western Conference Finals. That's how you're going to prove it, at least to me. So Donovan Mitchell is the 5th player that needs to prove something. Number 4, Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid, you're finally healthy. You got a good team. You're first in the East. The East is yours. You got a cruise. You got an easier route than Brooklyn and Milwaukee in the playoffs to get to the Eastern Conference. So I think Joel Embiid, this is winning time. This is time for you to prove that you are the MVP. All right, so Joel Embiid, number 4. Number 3, Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard, you've been in the playoffs since you've been in the league. You've proven that Dame time is real. Now it's time to prove it. Win against Denver. Get to the Western Conference Finals, or get as close, because I know your second round matchup is either the Lakers or the Suns. Get to the second round. Prove to all of us that you are that dude. So that's what I have to say about Damian Lillard being the 3rd player who has to prove something. Number 2, Chris Paul. Chris Paul has a lot to prove. Chris Paul's never been to the NBA Finals. He's been to 1 conference championship in 16 years that he's played basketball. So Chris Paul has a lot to prove, especially with having the Suns as the 2nd best team in the league record-wise. This is your time to prove, and especially right now against the Lakers. If you're going to see the Lakers, you might as well see them early on when they're trying to figure things out. So this is Chris Paul's chance to prove that he really is the point god. All right, and number 1, the player has to prove the most, Paul George. Paul George, the past 2 playoff years you've been in the playoffs have been atrocious. The way you've exited has been atrocious. Last year, we know that infamous hitting the backboard or hitting the sideboard. And then a couple years ago, we know that bad stat line that he had when he was with Russell Westbrook. We've seen too many bad times that Paul George has had in the playoffs. It's time to prove it here and now. Get to the Western Conference Finals. Give the Lakers a huge challenge. Be that player in that series. So Paul George has a lot to prove in the playoffs. So there you go. My top 5 players who have to prove something. Number 5, Donovan Mitchell. 4, Joel Embiid. 3, Damian Lillard. 2, Chris Paul. And number 1, Paul George. Have you ever had a parent, whether you're the 2nd or the 3rd born or the baby of the family, have you ever had a parent when they're arguing with you or giving you a lecture and they say, well, your older sibling didn't do this. They were always like this, and they always did this, and they always led by this. Now, I know we've probably heard it, whether it's from a teacher that says, oh, well, this student doesn't do that, or if it's from a parent that says, oh, well, when he was young, he didn't do this like you just did. Now, that's basically what's happening with LeBron James. LeBron James is the most scrutinized athlete in the world. LeBron James can't hit a game winner without people saying, was that luck? Now, a lot of players have hit game winners, right? That's how you win a game. You hit a game winner. Now, LeBron James is the only athlete that gets told when he makes a game-winning shot, oh, that was luck. Because we just can't accept the fact that he's clutch or that he can shoot game winners. And he's proven it time and time before. There's this crazy stat. I know that LeBron James is the most clutchest player, at least according to that stat. Now, a lot of people compare him to Michael Jordan. They say, oh, well, Michael didn't need to shoot a game winner because he was always winning the game before. Or, oh, Michael Jordan hit the game winner over this said player. Now, we like to criticize, we like to compare LeBron James to Michael Jordan. I think that LeBron James is the best player to ever play because of everything else that he does on the court. Again, Michael Jordan scored a lot. That's why people think he's the best. But in basketball sense, there's more to basketball than just scoring the basketball. There's defense, there's rebounds, there's assists, there's getting teammates involved, there's being a great leader. LeBron James always gets compared to Michael Jordan. I heard this crazy podcast with Rob Parker and Chris Broussard, and I'm going to play this clip right here for you to see.
James. As always, a false narrative can be spun anyway. First of all, LeBron and Kobe, when you talk about it, these guys came straight out of high school, so they've played a lot more playoff games. They've been in more situations like this, so they obviously should have higher numbers, and they're great players. Also, a lot of the guys you're talking about that he's been better than, those guys didn't have those games because they were comfortably ahead, and they were winning games. They weren't scrambling at the end. When you think of LeBron James and one of the greatest moments in NBA history, or the one that he claims he became the GOAT, it was not LeBron James who took the shot. It was Kyrie Irving who made a three-pointer that sent shockwaves. When you think about LeBron James and many of the failures and why he's lost more NBA finals than any other regular season MVP, is because we remember the games where LeBron James was giving up the ball to other people and not taking those shots. So, Chris, I give it to you that he has knocked down some big shots. No one's saying he's a bum, but even with that shot last night, that's not going to change the perception of most people that LeBron, when normally the game is on the line, he's looking for somebody else to bail him out. He's not always taking it.
All right, in this clip, Rob Parker, who's most notably known as a LeBron hater or a person who's not a huge fan of LeBron, and what he said was that LeBron James is not clutch because he's lost 6 finals. He blames everything on LeBron. But when he says that Michael Jordan never missed a shot, that he always hit the game winner, that he was always clutch, and he said all this other stuff. Now, when you compare two players from different eras, it's unfair because the players are different. The styles are different. Now it's all about shooting threes in high-scoring games. Back then it was all about refs more swallowing their whistle a little bit more in the playoffs and not calling ticky-tacky fouls. And I understand that. But when you compare these two players, you're not giving a fair chance to the other player when he makes a game winner. You're criticizing that shot because I don't know why. He made the shot, it went in. Again, did LeBron make a good excuse that he was seeing 3 rims? Was he really seeing 3 rims? We don't know. We don't know. We're not in LeBron's eyes. But what I'm trying to say here is that we compare too much. We don't let players just grow. And again, I understand social media is everywhere. I mean, look at me. I'm on here talking to you, giving you my opinion. But I think social media, especially growing up in this social media era, I understand that there's going to be more scrutiny because you can see a play in 2 seconds after it happens on your news feed. And it's a good thing and it's a bad thing because it leads to criticism. And it also leads to, again, being able to see it, just having it on your phone, having easy access to it. Now, with this criticism, I think it's, again, I've said this before, it's unfair because we're comparing 2 different eras and we're unfairly criticizing the player because we say that, oh, he's not clutch because he lost 6 finals. But he hit that game winner to send the Lakers to the playoffs, which I don't really understand. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Again, I love listening to The Odd Couple with Rob Parker and Chris Broussard, but I just think that when I hear the other radio shows say, was it a lucky shot? People literally questioning whether it was a lucky shot. If you watch, and I'm going to show the video in just a little bit of LeBron hitting the shot, you see that he was in his regular form in which he always shoots. Again, if LeBron was just shooting like a half-court shot just to throw it up, then maybe it's a lucky shot. But he got into his stance. he got into a shooting form, and he took it. As you can see here.
Tied up by Green. Throws it back up top. James puts up the three. Oh, it's gone! LeBron James from downtown! That's the shot.
And again, you see this video, and again, a lot of people think that it's luck, but he's practiced those shots since he was little. Again, LeBron James has been in the league for 18 years. He knows how to shoot his shot. He shot it, he got into his form, he shot the ball, and it went in. Again, it's unfair to criticize him and giving him unfair criticism by comparing him to another player from 25 years ago. It's unfair, and especially to bring up other things that the player has failed on. So that's a little bit of unfair criticism. We got to let LeBron James grow. I think he's the best basketball player. I don't like entertaining the conversation of comparing him to another player just because I think he's the best to ever do it. That's my opinion. That's how I feel. I think it's unfair to compare, and I don't like comparing. The only reason I compare is because I have to entertain the conversation because of other people. I don't like entertaining the conversation on my own. But this, I felt like needed to entertain the conversation in this case. So that's my opinion. It wasn't a lucky shot. He got into his form. He shot it. He made it. We got to stop criticizing the player. All right? And I'm one of the harshest criticizers on LeBron, believe it or not. But I just think that we shouldn't criticize, especially since the shot went in. So I don't know where the criticism is coming from. So just let LeBron be his own player. All right. Anyways, so that does it for the show. I'm really hoping to go live tomorrow at some point. I'm going to try to schedule it. I didn't go live on YouTube last time because YouTube didn't let me go live on my phone. It said I needed an X amount of subscribers, but I'm hoping to get on my laptop. It did let me go on my laptop, but I needed permission, like a 24-hour in advanced permission. So I'm hoping to go live to give you my disappointment teams of the year and my surprised, or teams that I was surprised with over the year. And I'm hoping to also talk more about basketball since I'm hopefully going to be going live during the actual playoff games. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next time. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Keep up with the show by clicking the subscribe button to get the latest from the show. Also, turn on the notifications to know when a new episode is posted. Thank you.